What's that?
Well done, young man.
Well done. So, well, all people want to be happy and to be loved. This truth is everywhere, in everything, even the Declaration of Independence. The pursuit of happiness consumes books, songs, articles, TV shows, careers, and lifetimes, even university programs and entire institutions. It's the universal quest of humanity, and we spend a lot of money and time trying to get there, some constructive, some not so much. But the quest never ends, does it? So this talk title is Happiness for the Hardheaded. I have some hands going up, okay? And this topic has fascinated me for years. In fact, that title's been in my head for years. Maybe because I have an interest in getting to the root of a problem, maybe because I have a couple of them in my family and have a vested interest in their happiness, and maybe because I see this group as the least likely to succeed at finding happiness, and I want to help them, and I'm going to explain that.
This group?
No. No. Generally not. So what is it that makes us hard-headed? That's the first question. We might also call it stubbornness or controlling or even having a strong will, right? And even more, what is it that makes this trait like a badge of honor? Something people proudly proclaim, people say of themselves or their loved ones, well, he's stubborn, or I'm just stubborn. And we laugh because it's something that we all recognize in our own lives. And I would even say that society holds these folks in esteem. People that have a strong will can achieve great things. It's associated with success, at least in our physical human plane, right? And strength, and it's true that on some level that people who have these traits can be very productive and successful and get what they want. But at some point, it goes off the rails. If anyone has ever spent time with someone with a strong will, someone hard-headed, we all know them, maybe we are them ourselves, you know that life can be very difficult for the people in their presence sometimes. So where does this come from? I believe that stubbornness evolved as a survival trait, really, for most of human history up to the not so distant past. It was only those with a strong will to survive that overcame immense physical hardships that humanity bore. It was only up to a few generations ago. Maybe up to a point, natural selection was part of it. Certainly genetics and family patterns play a role, nature versus nurture. But at its core, I think stubbornness is related to a need to be right, which is related to a need for control, and that boils down to fear. So what is a person who needs control afraid of? What is it? It's easy. You'll kick yourselves.
Losing control.
Losing control, okay?
Oh, that was a hard one.
Well, I told you, kick yourself. What's gonna happen if I lose control, for God's sake? Because I am the master puppeteer of the universe. Right? So let's hold the idea that at the heart of hard-headedness may be a deep-seated fear and insecurity, which is kind of ironic because these are the folks that we see as being the most powerful and the strongest. But what is the truth? So there's a way of getting to the root of things. Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Merely. I love that part. We always hear that happiness lies within, but A, what does that even mean? And B, it doesn't stop us from seeking the next donut or dollar amount that we think will bring happiness. And maybe that's why we seek the physical, because pleasure, even though it's temporary and empty, is way easier to understand and achieve than taking a hard look inside. Never was there a scarier and less appealing prospect than facing our own selves. And never was there an activity that was avoided with more energy and glee. The trouble is that that path is steep and wide, and it's in a direction in opposition to our stated goals. We want to be happy because they don't realize that in facing what's hidden, they dispel its power. In As a Man Thinketh, a little book that was written in 1903, some of you may be familiar with. It's on the public domain. It's free online if you want to take a look, or if you want to take a look at this copy. James Allen says, "Only by much searching and mining are gold and diamonds obtained, and man can find every truth connected with his being if he will dig deep into the mine of his soul." So not only will distractions not get us there, but it takes tremendous effort to turn around and start digging. To not only turn around and face ourselves, but to remember that we're digging for gold and diamonds. If happiness is within, then that's where we have to seek. In 2004, I wrote a 2-page little thing called Simple Roadmap to Happiness. And I brought copies of that if anybody wants to look. It's a little tongue-in-cheek. Obviously, it's not simple, or it would be done and dusted by now. But there's a few essential components that I'll outline now. So one is to seek growth, just kind of a state of mind, something not to be constantly pursuing, because obviously there's life to be lived. But in the Gospel of Thomas, it says, "Those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and will reign over all." So that's a little bit of a different take on the seeking you will find thing. I think that's true, but I think this is more true. No one says it will be easy, but like going through the fire, you come out renewed on the other side. Self-acceptance is number 2. You are intrinsically good. And a fundamental goal of life is to methodically reprogram your brain to convince yourself of that. Good people always think they're bad. I don't know why. Maybe it's because we have a conscience. Maybe it's because of the number of times our parents asked us what's wrong with us when we were kids. Whatever it is, it's foundational to consciously strive to balance our self-concept. 3 is forgiveness. Be it for yourself or for others, this is a crucial ingredient. Happiness just cannot occupy the same space as anger or guilt or fear or any negative emotion. It just can't. And if those emotions exist, we can't make them disappear. They need acknowledgement. So bringing these emotions up to the light of day means they will cease to control you and your behavior and your thoughts. 4 is faith. Faith is the opposite of fear. Isn't that a book? Is that a book title? Faith is the opposite of fear. Is there, I thought there was a Course in Miracles book called something like that. But anyway. Love is letting go of fear. There we go. Thank you. You get the prize. So last year I gave a talk on fear, where I said the single most repeated phrase in the Bible is "do not fear." Do not fear. I think that's another foundational goal of our task here as humanity, is to learn how not to fear. If we have any faith, even the faith of a mustard seed, and are able to accept that the universe wants only the highest and best for us, then the greater the degree we can incorporate that into our being, into our belief system, and rest in the knowledge that the universe is conspiring in our favor, and we can finally accept our soul's path with joy and excitement. All of these things, these 4 things I outlined, would be difficult for a stubborn person. To them, it would mean being wrong, right? If I'm perfect, what's there to change? Okay. So I want to talk about the process of using one's will, because stubbornness is unhealthy will, or it can be. But it's a very strong energy. And if we become aware of the nature of our barriers and remove some of the mystery, then we can become aware of and shift the intention to healthy will. Thought is creative. We accept that. We're unity people. Thank goodness we are imbued with that idea all the time. Thought becomes action. And in between there is will. We think of willpower. usually in terms of having the will not to eat that donut and failing, and then telling ourselves that we're weak and have no willpower. But the power of our will is employed in every moment of the day. Mark Thurston wrote a book called Willing to Change. Does anybody recognize that name? Sure. Yeah, so he worked down at ARE for 30 years, and now he's at George Mason University, heading what I still prefer to call the Center for Consciousness and Transformation. They've changed the name, and I can't ever remember what it is. Something about well-being. Center for Well-Being, something like that, yeah. So anyway, it had more punch before.
It's becoming organizationally ingrained.
Yes, yeah. So he wrote this book about will, and he says, I'm going to read an excerpt. He says, if you experience the meaning and power of your will, then you know yourself in a whole new way. You will have found one of the basic ingredients of your soul, and you will have found the part of your soul that makes growth and transformation possible. What is the will? Is it a particular state of mind? Is it a certain kind of energy? Or is it instead one of the basic building blocks of human experience, something on an equal footing with mind and energy itself? Perhaps the mystery and the power of the will is best understood by treating it as philosophers would a fundamental category of human life. That is to say, the will could be seen as something so basic to who we are that it cannot be explained in terms of other essential building blocks such as energy and mind. By way of analogy, we might think of color. There are three primary pigments, red, blue, and yellow. These are the basic building blocks of all other colors. The color green can be explained in terms of the interaction of two other primary colors, yellow and blue, the color purple by the interaction of red and blue, but how can blueness be explained? It is not a specialized form of red or yellow, nor can it be created by a specialized mixing of these other two primary colors. Blue itself is one of the fundamental building blocks. In a similar fashion, we can think of the will as a basic category of life, one of life's fundamental colors. Will cannot be explained as a kind of energy, nor as a particular state of mind. Life can be understood and given meaning only as we are able to see and relate to will as an independent faculty or ingredient of the soul on an equal footing with energy and mind. So I found this to be very interesting. That will is as foundational to our beings as mind and energy. We often hear about body, mind, and spirit, but our will is the typically unconscious power making everything happen. Of course, this process isn't always positive. It can go either way, right? So having a healthy will and good intentions is a critical part of the equation. I've recently seen the latest Avengers movie. Stay with me here. I'm not a huge comics fan, but I've been enjoying some superhero movies lately. Black Panther was amazing. Anybody see that? No? Yeah? It's got a couple nods. Every single one basically boils down to a monumental battle between the big bad evil guy who's determined to destroy the universe and the superhero who's determined to save it, right? The heroes are never without flaws. I've read analyses that include borderline personality disorder for Batman, Spider-Man's extreme guilt, Captain America's overconfidence and stubbornness. Many have depression. So, psychoanalyzing superheroes' personalities was not really what I had in mind when I started writing this, but as I thought about willpower, what personalities more strongly embody the power of the will and hard-headedness than superhuman characters? They're exaggerations, but we love them because they amplify our own traits, positive and negative, which is why, of course, we can relate. Here's why I think it's important. Has anyone ever in your life walked out of a superhero movie feeling powerful? Have you? Yeah, I sure have. So, if the character is someone you can personally relate to, even more so. You know, for me, it was Wonder Woman. I grew up watching Linda Carter in her invisible jet and her lasso, right? And then recently, because Mary invited me, I was able to see the recent remake of Wonder Woman movie. And wow, I walked out of that movie feeling 10 feet tall. double my height. And in fact, we can conjure that feeling. Do you ever hear the notion that as well as our brain sending our body messages, our body sends our brain messages, right? Even maybe equally or even more so. So when we're slouched or we're sitting like this, we're sending ourselves a message. Well, what if we stand in a superhero stance? Then what happens? You can really bring on a feeling of power with that. And you can conjure it any time. It's an energy. Thought is creative. Imagine superhero energy, embody it, and build your healthy will, your personal power and courage to face yourself and your emotions to fight for what's good and right. In mythology, here's another hero analogy. In mythology, there's something called the hero's journey, which goes something like this. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. There is a very difficult journey. Fabulous forces are encountered, and there is a steep descent. Help appears just as she encounters seemingly insurmountable obstacles. A decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on her fellow man. Sound familiar? It's basically every superhero and Disney movie ever made. Even Star Wars was based on this construct. It was George Lucas had read Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces, and he applied it to Star Wars. And that this familiar construct can be applied to our own inward journey. If we apply the hero's journey to our inward venture, it might sound something like this. A human being ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of subconscious wonder. There is a very difficult journey. Self-destructive forces are encountered, and there is a steep descent. Help appears just as she encounters seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Something previously hidden is brought into awareness and healed. The human comes back from this mysterious adventure with greater love to bestow on her fellow man. And here is another visual. This is from the Personal Transformation and Courage Institute that many of you may have heard me talk about before. And this is their pictorial of the journey of personal transformation, with the hero here at the beginning and the descent and the ally coming to help. And if anyone would like to take a closer look at that, you'll be welcome to do that. So, this talk has been quite a journey. And I want to bring it back to the title, Happiness for the Hardheaded. Hardheadedness is a survival trait, one that serves a purpose, but can also spill over into unhealthy will. By harnessing the hero's energy, and with good intentions and spiritual faith, we can dig into the mysterious depths of the subconscious to seek growth, self-acceptance, forgiveness, and emotional healing. In this way, we release the fear-driven need for control and have ever more love and happiness to bestow on the world. Hard-headedness and the need to be right can transform into wisdom, understanding, and personal power, the kind of limitless power that cannot be taken away by any real-world villain. So to conclude, I'll say that on the Unity of the Center of Peace website, I saw a little link at the bottom for an article called A Life of Joy by Michael Gott, whose songs David and I have sung in here many times. And he listed a quote, and as you know, I love quotes, by, forgive my French, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, that joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. I believe that being willing to go on this journey, that joy is the inevitable and infallible result. So let's sing a little song together, just a little snippet. I think you'll recognize it. Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy, clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Because Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy, clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.